Hey everybody, welcome to the Everything Paranormal Show. I'm your host Josh Morris, and joining me today is a very special guest, Bob Fountain. Bob Fountain, who is with Spectral Tech. He's been leading those folks for quite a long time, and also he's a writer in the Paranormal Underground magazine. So if you've never heard of that magazine and you love paranormal, guys, go check them out because it's an amazing magazine. I actually got it. And let me tell you, it comes in your email. It's like a PDF form, but it is high definition, high quality, just like you're flipping through any other paper magazine. And I do believe you can get the paper editions as well. But Bob, welcome to the show. How are you doing this evening, sir?
I'm doing good. At least we finally got together. I didn't have a chance to bail this time.
Right?
No, last time.
After a little technical problems last time.
Was it technical or was it the defense industry trying to stop us from talking?
I don't know. There's a conspiracy for you right there.
Great to know.
Well, listen, Bob, we got a great show lined up. We're going to be talking about some UFOs and aliens. I know that's why I brought you on here back again by popular demand. My folks were wanting you to get back on here. And, of course, I know another subject besides ghosts is UFOs. So just to give a little bit of information to some of the folks out there, the term UFO, of course, you guys mostly know is the unidentified flying object. But UFO or UFOB was actually coined by the United States Air Force in 1953. And they define it sort of as any airborne object which by performance, aerodynamic characteristics, or unusual features does not conform to any presently known aircraft or missile type, or which cannot be positively identified as a familiar object. So prior to that, like in the 40s and 50s, most people just referred to those type of things as flying saucers or flying discs. And of course, one of the scientists in the Air Force said, you know what, we cannot just go around saying flying discs or flying saucers in our reports, because again, they had many reports of things and it just didn't always fit, because UFO is a pretty broad term. But I wanted Bob to talk about some experiences that he was telling me about. He knows quite a bit about UFOs, served some time in the Navy. Again, thank you for your service, Bob. So what can you tell us about UFOs?
Well, a little bit. I don't get into UFOs much because, there's some categories there in the paranormal, the cryptids. I don't want to get eaten. I don't want my arms and legs pulled off, so I stay away from that. Aliens, I don't want to get anal probed, so I try to stay away from them. So I stick with the ghosts primarily, because all they can do is scare you.
Right.
But anyway, some things happened over the years that I was just like any kid, enjoying myself. But something happened when I was younger that I never told you before or anybody. Is I kept on having this recurring dream when I was a little kid, where I was getting up on a chair. We lived out in the country, out in the middle of nowhere, and I got up on a chair to get a drink of water out of the sink. I was that small. I think I was before first grade, so that's 5 or 6 years old. Anyway, I heard something in this little coat room before you come into the house, and I saw something in the window, and it had huge eyes and big gray head. Well, I was scared, tried to get off the chair. Next thing I know is this door is swinging open, something's coming towards me, and that's it.
Wow.
That whole dream, I had it over and over and over. So I had a friend of ours that's in the UFO community. She does dream interpretations. So I told her the details of this dream, and they look for all the symbols and how this represents this and on and on.
Right.
She said what she found disturbing about it, none of the stuff related. She says she really doesn't think that was a dream. She thinks it's something that really happened. And I had an investigator. I don't know if there's people out there who's into UFOs much, but there's a guy named Dr. David Jessup. He wanted to regress me to let me know if it was a dream or not. That's one of those things, it's a toss-up. Do you really want to know?
Right.
And I really didn't want to know. So I just said, no, I'll just stick with it's a dream.
Yeah.
But anyway, you want to know about the Navy. When I was in the Navy, I was on the 12 to 4 o'clock duty roster. I was a radarman, so I was above decks, and I was watching the radar, and someone was coming across the radar at about 1,000 miles an hour, and it did a right angle turn, which it shouldn't happen.
Right.
And then it did it again, and I adjusted the radar width. If you change the pulse width, it takes care of some of those problems like that, because if a cold front and a warm front hit, it will create a radar image. So I was trying to adjust the pulse width, and it wouldn't go away. So we asked the lookout if he saw anything up there, and he was stuttering. He says, my God, they're real." So we didn't know what he was talking about. So two of us ran out the door on the area where our combat information center was, and there was something about 50 foot across, zipping from one ship to the other above it, and it must have been maybe 100 foot up from there. It was just going back and forth between the ships. And then all of a sudden, we watched two jets come off the carrier. The carrier was the Essex. We were on a little destroyer escort, so we're further out from the carrier. But we watched two jets leave, and all of a sudden, this thing went from the size of a house up to the air, up to a dot in the sky in about 5 seconds, and off it went. We couldn't wait to get back in and write down what we just had seen. The captain comes barging in, because he was above decks at the time.
Right.
He come barging in. We stood at attention, and he said, "Did you people write anything down yet?" And we told him we didn't. He says, "Well, then don't. It didn't happen, and you never to mention this again. And if you do, you'll go to prison." That changed my reality there pretty quick about what the government knew.
Yeah, I would say so.
Well, and at 20 years old, if a captain of a ship tells you you're going to go to prison, you're going to go to prison as far as you're concerned.
Now I know, like, even when I was in the military, when you're around other, like, airmen or crewmen, that shared in that same type, guys that are in your job, guys that you work with, guys you experience. I mean, what was the conversation like between you guys maybe after that? I mean, did you guys still speak about it, or did you just kind of forget about it?
One time we were talking, me and another guy that was on the shift with me started talking about it, and our officer, he was a lieutenant, he said, "What were you two told?" After that, we never talked.
Oh.
It's just one of those things you keep yourself and never say.
Right. Now, also with, like, radar operators, is this something that was kind of common with did you talk to other radar operators in the future that said, "Yeah, man, I had similar experiences"? I mean, because it seems like when I do hear about certain UFO experiences, I've heard of a few radar techs that seem to have been in that position like you and sort of witnessed it on radar and things like that. But you also said you witnessed it visually as well. So, but I'm just interested. Have you had other radar techs that you've talked to that experienced that?
Not after that, because here this lieutenant that was in charge of the radar operations, Combat Information Center, he wasn't there the night that happened, and all of a sudden he's telling us, "What were you told?" The paranoia kicks in. How many of these officers know about it?
Right.
And how many are monitoring what we're doing? So, no, that stayed with me for years and years.
Right.
Never brought it up.
And I would even say that too. It's also during those time frames as well, because even for me, when you're younger or in the older generations, even when I was growing up, that last generation, that sort of, we weren't outspoken because we respected the system, we respected our elders, our commanders and chiefs, all that stuff. And I think that, yes, I can see what you're saying, where you probably wouldn't go around and say, well, it's nowadays, with social media, it would just be, people have a hard time keeping their mouth shut. They just blast it everywhere. Like, look what I see. They love that attention. So, but yeah, my wife popped in the chat and she said, hey, Bob, she missed you. She said, thank you for your service. And of course, definitely she was like, yikes, with your story. But that's very interesting. I mean, that how did that impact you going forward into the future toward those type of things?
I started reading everything I could from different authors about what was out there as far as UFOs were concerned. Then I met several of the well-known UFO researchers. Let's see here. I got to name some of them because my mind's getting old, you know. But Bud Hopkins, I don't know if you remember who
I
he
recognize
was.
that name.
Yep. Well, I talked to him for about an hour one night. See, we had a person here named Eddie Middleton. He ran a radio show on the paranormal, and we were kind of friends. So he'd invite me to a lot of these functions where they had guest speakers, and invite me to go to dinner with him after the lecture. So I got to meet Bud Hopkins, Dr. David Jessup, Fred Allen Wolf, and he's a theoretical physicist, and he talks about UFOs and that. He talks about more from a metaphysical and spiritual aspects.
Right.
Linda Moulton Howe, I spent 10 minutes with her once. So, I mean, I got some firsthand information from them people, plus all the books I kept up on. And there's, you know, people say, well, you know, I've never seen one, you can't prove it. There's overwhelming evidence out there that there's something up there, we don't know what it is.
Right.
I have a feeling that's coming to an end here pretty soon.
And that may be. That may be. I mean, I know that even my grandma used to always tell me that we would be naive to think that we are the only ones in the universe.
Oh, yeah.
So, but I guess that also depends. I think, you know, also it's going to depend on your beliefs because, you know, typically you got your flat earthers, you got your geocentric and your heliocentric. And, of course, geocentric and heliocentric share some similar things, just on where things revolve around is a little different. But, you know, so I think some of that can also dictate on what you believe with aliens, whether they actually come from another solar system, whether aliens are maybe fallen angels or something. You know, I know that I've heard a lot of like interdimensional type stuff, portals, or just good old fashioned they're traveling here with technology that supersedes ours and they're observing. There's all kinds of popular theories. Where do you kind of fall in line with what you might believe these UFOs are?
Well, I think they're from other planets, actually. Just because we can't get there, we're kind of being naive, assuming it can't be done.
Right.
And in fact, there's more and more scientists out there starting to believe that, yeah, it could be done with certain kinds of technology that we're not even close to achieving yet.
Sure.
You know, I was in the Tennessee State Guard for a while, and our commander used to be a Thunderbird pilot, you know, with the like the
Air Force Blue Angels.
Blue Angels, yeah.
Right.
But he was one of those pilots, and during Vietnam, he said he saw several of them. And we asked for details. He said he wouldn't tell us because it was still classified as secret.
Right.
And he said if they were something other than interplanetary, he wouldn't know it. He says because when they left out of his sight, they was going into space. So apparently they have the technology to do that.
Now,
but you know, as many theories that's out there, probably all of them's true.
Right. Yeah. Now the National UFO Reporting Center, which is based in the U.S., just to kind of throw some numbers out there, in 2014 there was 8,000 plus reportings that year, and all the way till 2018, it actually dropped down to eventually 2018 only finished the year with 3,343. And with 2019 already actually started to come back up and surpassed that 3,300 mark. I'm not sure exactly where it finished. They didn't release the final statistics for 2019 yet on that. But it already did surpass 2018, so it kind of made a slight uprise. And then they contribute that to the whole Storm Area 51 thing with a little more interest in UFOs, I'm sure. But still, I mean, you got to figure, Bob, from, 8,000 plus sightings in a year in 2014, again, just 6 years ago, and even still, we're getting 3,000 at least reported sightings. That's not even unreported, people that see things and go, I don't want to tell anybody. So, again, and I'm not saying all these are true, of course, but I'm just saying that's still a lot of sightings. What do you think about those numbers?
Well, the numbers have decreased a bit. There's some theories that there's some of the aliens that's there for our benefit that's actually trying to help and protect us somewhat, and that there's other ones that have other motives. So maybe the good guys ran off some of the bad guys, they don't show up anymore. Or basically they figure we're intellectual hillbillies and we're not worth studying anymore. There could be a number of reasons why.
Right.
But I would think that it would increase if, with everybody that's got video cameras now, where it's not that hard to sit there and record something. It's not a matter of, you had to take some pictures, wait to get them developed and all that. You can almost immediately record something, which people do all the time, and get it posted out on YouTube or someplace like that.
Yeah.
So there'd be more of them. But heck, I don't know. Like I say, I don't want to get probed, so I stay out of it.
Well, speaking of probed, aliens. We got to talk at least a little bit. I know we don't want to get probed, for sure. Especially probed in areas I definitely don't want to be probed in ever. So,
Yep.
But aliens, I know, again, it kind of goes hand in hand with UFOs, but I know that there's still a distinguishment because there is people out there that their version of UFOs are just experimental aircraft or, again, maybe fallen angels or whatever their theories are. Sometimes aliens and UFO, the flying saucer part, doesn't go together because sometimes there's people that, again, they think UFOs are something different. So with that being said, what about some of these alien things? Now, you said you had the reoccurring dreams. So do you feel like that there's definitely aliens then? I know it's kind of a crazy question, but you did say that you did believe in from other solar systems. So I would guess you believe in aliens, right?
Oh, yeah. In fact, one of the people I interviewed for the magazine once who lives in this area told about how she was abducted when she was camping at a place called Fort Pillow up around this area. And she hadn't mentioned it to anyone other than me in probably 30 years, she said.
Wow.
It was interesting what happened to her. The pieces kind of tied together. She talked about how she just wasn't afraid whatsoever. She just mad at them, and she fought them, and they let her come back to her tent, and they never touched her. And Dr. Jacobs points out a lot of times they'll put memories in you that aren't really what you experienced. And
right.
Was it she wasn't afraid of them and got put back, or after they got done doing what they did to her, they stuck that memory in her?
Have you? Do you remember the movie Fire in the Sky?
Yep.
Yeah, I saw that in the theaters. I think when it came out because I was always curious about UFOs and aliens, and I found that to be pretty fascinating. I know it's based on his experience, but still, I mean, it kind of scared me. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, because if they're coming after you, there ain't much you can do about it. One of the people that had the implants that they found in a lot of people, one person said it all. It's like what we do to deer and stuff like that to track them. Once they put one in you, if you don't know it's there, you're not getting away from them ever. So
right.
If they're doing long-term experiments on you, they're always going to find you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah,
that's why I kind of stay away from all that stuff, because I don't want to get on a list somewhere.
Well, and the thing is you don't know. Like, people think of trackers like, oh, maybe they did some kind of biochip. Like, I've had x-rays, I've had MRIs, and I don't have anything in me, but they don't realize that if their technology allows them to come here, what's to say that they're not using, like, biomarkers, some kind of biological marker that they can inject in you that's not like some physical metal object. So, again,
yep.
That's just my 2 cents on that. I just wanted to throw out an interesting little thing I came across one day, and that was in 1973. There was a survey done, and 95% of people knew or heard of UFOs. 95% of people. And ironically, in 1977, just 9 months after the president left office. Only 92% of people even knew who President Ford was. So I just found that little nugget. I thought that was pretty interesting that there was actually 3% more of people that actually knew and heard more about UFOs than they did the president. So I just found that, and that was even after he was in office. So.
Oh yeah. Well, if you ever watch some of these reporters and stuff that go out and ask people about politics or certain things, it's surprising the ignorance most people have about what goes on around them. They just get up, go to work, come home, go to sleep, and do it again.
Oh yeah.
So in this community, we're not happy with the reality the way it is, because I don't think it's the same as a real reality. There's stuff out there we don't know about. Most people don't want to know about it.
Oh.
One of the lady that was abducted, they have a tendency to abductions run in the family. For whatever reason, they're doing that. And one of the people in my group, she says she likes to go out on nice, clear, starry nights, and she says several times she spotted UFOs. I'm thinking, well, if your grandmother was abducted and they actually did stuff to her, you're the granddaughter. I said, there's a likelihood that you're not seeing them for just out of coincidence.
Right.
There's a likelihood you could have been tracked going out in the dark in the middle of the night, knowing that they exist and they're doing experiments on people. That to me is kind of dumb.
Yeah. I mean, what do you make of if a lot? Let's just say maybe even 1% of these reports are true, and we're getting, and let's say like 20 to 30 of these a year are real. I mean, that's still quite a bit. Even if I'm just saying like even just 1%, 1 out of 100 is true. Now, what do you think their game would be? Because it doesn't seem like they're obviously just coming here. You think it's strictly observational, or like you said, are they probing? Are they just conducting a variety of science experiments?
I think they're conducting a bunch of science experiments, to tell you the truth. I mean, what purpose? If they're going for resources between wherever they're from, which is anywhere nearby, there's all kinds of planets with all kinds of resources. So why sit there and screw around with a populated planet to get resources? That'd be insane. If you can get resources closer to home, that's where you're going to go, unless they're not capitalist. So I doubt if it's the resources. It's like what scientists do here. If it's a species that's unknown, you try to categorize it, catalog it, and figure out how it functions. So we just might be one huge experiment.
Right. And of course, scientists are notorious for finding species and conducting very bad experiments on them because, hey, why not? Like, let's just see what their tolerances are. So,
anthropologists do that all the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I know, like...
if they wanted to conquer us, they're not going to invade us. That'd be dumb. If they know our biological functions already, all you got to do is introduce a virus.
Well, and that's true.
Population, and you don't have to worry about conquering anybody.
Right. I mean, and I would agree with you on that, because I think if they have been studying us for this amount of time, for this long, because we've got there's hieroglyphics that supposedly depict UFOs. So, there's no telling how long these things truly have been around observing us. Again, some people say they could even have created our been the true creators of our species. I mean, who knows? I mean, again, there's so many theories. But bottom line, all this observation, one thing I'm sure that they know about us is that if they were to show up, we're gonna end up probably destroying ourselves just trying to defeat them by launching nukes at them and stuff. I mean, we would end up being stupid enough to probably just launch a bunch of warheads, and because that would be our only way of trying to overcome their technology. So I would agree with you. I think a biological standpoint or a biological warfare would be probably more tactically to their advantage.
And I don't think we would be launching anything, because they've already proved they can shut down our nuclear facilities. So if we want to launch anything, if they can travel the thousands of miles an hour that they supposedly can, they're just going to zip over the sites and kill the missiles before they even start.
I would agree. Now, I will say that one thing that just sort of getting off that war tactic side of things, I will say that I can't say that I personally have really had a true UFO experience in my entire life. I have looked toward the skies. I've looked up there. I've kind of, I've tried to do a little bit of observing. I do remember vividly, though, there was one time I was coming home from going in the town. That's what we called it, going in the town. When you live out in the country, it's a trip. And we went in the town, and on the way back, I was with my grandma, and because I grew up with my grandparents, and I remember the sun was starting to set, and there was almost like a jet trail in the sky, small little jet trail. And I looked up, and I was just looking at it for about one or two solid seconds, and all of a sudden, it just shot off like faster than anything ever. I mean, especially that far away. There's nothing in our arsenal that could have launched like that. I don't think it was just like a missile that all of a sudden went into some super speed. But it shot off so quick, and I asked my grandma about it, and she didn't see it, but she said there was probably a shooting star. Now, I've seen shooting stars.
Yeah, they don't go upward.
Right, but this was like already there slowly, and you know what I mean, and then accelerated. It wasn't just something that hit. I don't know. It to me, and then the angle, and I don't know. But it just shot off, and that's about the only thing in my entire life that I can say I could not explain that, even looking back on it as an adult.
Yeah, well, my wife, talking about experiences, she's like she's not from Missouri, but she has that attitude. I got to see one to believe it.
Right.
Well, she's been saying that for years and years and years. About 2 years ago, she got up at 3 in the morning because we're old, you got to make potty runs. Anyway, she saw some strange lights, and she thought, well, maybe a cop car or something was in the street. Well, she looked out the front windows, and we live out in basically the outskirts of town, and across from us is a field with some woods behind it. And she looked out the window, and she said something was like 30 feet across, and it had red, yellow, green, blue lights, and it was just sitting there above the trees. And she said it wasn't making a sound. She just kept on staring at it, and all of a sudden she just watched it silently zip up into the sky. She's still refusing to believe it, but
there's never enough evidence for the skeptic, right?
No, absolutely not. Especially your own wife. What can I say? But one of the other team members we have, he was a policeman at the time for the town where we live in, and him and his partner was on the outskirts of town, and they watched one flying at tree level going across the road, and they both looked at each other, and they said, "If you don't say nothing, I won't." And then they did a U-turn and went back into town. But he said that's always stuck with him in his head, that, when he hears people now say, I've seen a UFO, or he actually pays attention. He doesn't sit there and smile, like they're fools or idiots or something. So there's a lot of people that see him, but they're afraid to speak.
Right.
The lady that got abducted, she kept her mouth shut after she told family members first. They started laughing at her, making fun of her. So she got tight-lipped about it. She said, I'm never going to get humiliated like that again. She kept it to herself all those years. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it really up until about really that when and again, I'm not trying to give too much credit, but when Ghost Hunters came out in 2004, the show Ghost Hunters, because of its reality style, what it really did is when that kind of took off, it did sort of change how people talked about paranormal in a household. It did seem to open the doors. It took that stigma off there. It seemed to be a little less taboo now to talk about paranormal. And that's really one thing I definitely credit that show for, was starting that whole era to where people started talking about, because now again it's there's I come across people all the time that talk about it more commonly now, like ghosts and things like that, UFOs, aliens. Whereas really before, as well as I do, back in the day, if somebody talked about a ghost or even like UFOs, a lot of times people are like, "You're a nut job" or "You're crazy." And you instantly got put in that category. So a lot of people just would rather, like you said, keep their mouth shut, not say anything, so that way they could just be a good, conformed person that blended in with everybody else.
That's like my wife. She'll say, "Now we're going to this function. Don't start talking about you're a paranormal researcher." People around here don't want to hear that. And somebody will say, "Are you the guy that does paranormal investigations?" And I'll say, "Yeah." She says, "I want to tell you about my cousin's house or my brother, or this is going on in our house." I mean, they're all wanting to talk to you because they know that they're not going to get ridiculed.
Yeah.
So every once you just need to come out and say, "Look, here's what I do. If you think I'm insane, then go away." But a lot of people, there's no place they can go to talk about it.
Well, and that's true, and that's why I'm glad that we do have places like this show or other. Again, there, and I would say that sometimes there still is a little bit of taboo in some. I would say in some circles of life.
Oh yeah.
Depending on. But I think for the common average person, it's definitely been a subject that more people can talk about nowadays. But still, right?
Oh yeah, and if the government came out tonight and said, "Yep, we've been hiding this from you because we were afraid it'd upset you. Aliens are out there. They're coming here. They're visiting." I think most people just say, "Okay, well, I got to go to work tomorrow. I still got to pay my bills." And I've seen enough movies and TV shows where it's no surprise to us.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, and I think most people, well, I don't want to say most, but I do think there's a large amount of people that they pretty much, this has been a subject talked about so much here lately that I think that yeah, they wouldn't be surprised. They'd be like, "Oh, what? You guys have you really have a UFO?" Pfft. Well, yeah, we kind of figured.
Well, there's books out there about that planet Serpo, where supposedly military people spent 15 years there on the planet in an exchange program, and there's a bunch going on out there. Of course, a lot of you got to take with a grain of salt, but there's all kinds of literature. Most people don't want to. All they want to do is if it scares them or startles them, they just rather not hear about it.
So
they don't want to look at evidence or anything like that.
So let's kind of cut over to the subject of like almost like an Area 51 style of the UFOs. In other words, I personally believe that there is obviously probably a good amount of sightings that are experimental aircraft from the military, and of course they're doing things that yet are not on the market or visibly seen yet. Much like probably like when drone technology. Think about a drone, a little drone in the air nowadays. I mean, it looks like a UFO. It acts. It can go in any direction. It would look exactly like a UFO back in the 1950s or something. And so I do think that there is some of this that is technology. And again, some people believe that's all that UFOs is just experimental aircraft. I do believe that there is some real sightings. But do you think that we are doing this experimental technology? Do you think we're reverse engineering from possibly a downed UFO that they have?
Well, according to Bob Lazar, that's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, well, Bob Lazar, he he definitely was that first person to really kind of obviously come out of that situation and talk.
Yep.
So, and I personally,
even if they are experimental aircraft, where do they get the technology? Did they figure it out themselves?
Right.
If you listen to the ancient alien shows, we'd still be living in caves if it wasn't for the aliens. But I don't think that's true either. But yeah, we could have gotten craft that we reverse engineers to a point. But then if the aliens do have an agenda, They could very well be working with our government, saying, you know, you almost got it right here. If you just do this, it'll work even better. And that's how that technology keeps on improving.
Right. Well, and it does seem like the progression of society does seem to be fairly natural. Like you can kind of see how the history evolved, the technology, but I will say it did start taking a pretty good upward turn shortly after all the stuff, when you hear all the rumors about like Roswell and downed alien aircraft. Then you do see a pretty good rise in our technology shortly after that. So one would definitely say, hey, maybe we did get a boost here in the last 50 years from reverse engineering.
Well, look at the ancient history. All of a sudden, we were living in caves or hunter-gatherers, and all of a sudden we have laws and agriculture and all that. It just all of a sudden jumped out of nowhere. Egyptians, they were basically nomads, and next thing you know, they're building pyramids. So it looks like there's several times in history, either we just got really smart really quick, or something gave us some advice.
Right.
You know, that, and the ancient aliens, you know, that could very well be. They might not be coming here anymore. You know, all of a sudden, if there's communities out there, there's spacefaring, all you gotta do is just put, here's a new place you can check out. These idiots that are trying to kill themselves. It's a neat place to visit. You better do it pretty quick because they ain't gonna be around too long. So we might be getting different species constantly coming here,
Right.
different civilizations.
And that may be for sure. Okay, so my wife popped in the chat also and said that our son and her basically are loving listening to you. They are both sick. They've been running some fevers and whatnot, so they've been kind of laying up in bed. That's about all they get to do here lately. So they've been, I guess, they're listening to the show tonight. So that's cool.
So they ain't got that virus from China.
Oh God, I know that's crazy. You know, and when you hear about what is it, like the coronavirus or whatever I think it is, and when you hear about these things, it gets a little scary because you start thinking, hey, is this the start of something that is seeded from the government or seeded from aliens? Because again, I'm on the fence. Like, it doesn't have to be aliens starting their biological warfare. It could be the government. You know what I mean? Thinning the herds and things like that. I mean, I do follow some of the conspiracy stuff. So
Yeah, I try not to as best I can. If I see some kind of data information out there, I'll try to research it as best I can, then make a decision on that. People that's out there for conspiracies, who's a great one on that? David Wilcox.
right.
If it ain't aliens trying to kill us off, it's our own government.
Yeah. Yeah, because you do see a lot of that go hand in hand. Because, and again, I think that's just also natural, kind of like what you were talking about earlier, when you had these Navy officials, these higher ups saying, "Hey, don't write anything down. It didn't happen." So then, again, you got some people in official government positions saying it didn't happen, and people, and so it's very closely related to obviously UFO occurrences. So yes, it's natural to always assume one is conspiring over the other,
Oh yeah,
or at the same
yeah.
time.
That in mind, you know, for a long time, the Catholic Church said we're the only God's creation, but then all of a sudden, the Pope's leading astronomer said, yeah, there could be some out there, and the Pope actually said that he would welcome them to Catholicism if they wanted to. So why is the Pope all of a sudden acknowledging aliens could be out there and he wants to convert them? Is he working with them?
Right.
You know, start a new conspiracy. Pope's an alien.
Right. Hey, I guarantee you, there's probably devoted studies to this, that the Pope is an alien or something. I guarantee it. Almost anything you could think. So,
Absolutely. And if there is, it'll be on YouTube before you know it.
And I See You See Me popped in. Hey, how you doing? I See You See Me. And she said hi. And she also said that we want to do experiments on them. No wonder why they hide.
Well, yeah. First thing we do is slice and dice them. Of course, if you believe all the other stuff, we've already done that.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I don't know what a lot of those they have some pretty good videos out there. I know some of them's been debunked and things, but they also said that the Patterson film was not real either. They debunked that, but then there was some scientists that said no, they proved that it was real, and I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, they went through muscle movements on the Patterson one to say that a human couldn't be like that. So
yeah, they measured like the different the joints and measured.
And the guy that said it was a hoax before he died said no, it was real. He's trying to protect him.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. It's sometimes you don't really know. I don't know. But one thing I definitely wanted to get I wanted to ask something for you, Bob, is because you deal with a lot of like paranormal as far as ghosts, okay? Actually, I wanted to ask you, have you come across cases that maybe led you something from instead of ghosts, and you said, "Man, maybe there's some alien or UFO abduction type stuff." I mean, have they kind of crossed paths?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
Most of the stuff I run into is just basically something's coming back trying to get your attention. There's only one place I had something really negative happen, and I won't go back, and that was Bobby Mackey's. Because I ended up almost dying out of that thing, but that's for a different show. No, I haven't had anything with that ties in yet. Pretty much just some spirit wants to get some attention, or is ticked off because somebody owns his house now,
right?
And he wants the way it was. So most of those are probably a majority of them are just issues with spirituality and ghosts and that. The time with aliens hasn't hit yet, and I usually try to research as much as I can on any of our cases.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I was just curious. Actually that question just popped on my head because I started thinking about that, and I've thought about that before. Like even when my wife and I was investigating, it was like I did think of that one time, thinking, what if I went somewhere and they were talking about being tormented, but it wasn't really ghosts, it was like aliens or something. I mean, I thought of that, so I just figured, hey, with you being around the block as well, I figured you might have had a case like that or something. But yeah, so that's interesting though. I wonder if there had been anybody. You know what? If you watch this, if you guys out there are watching this, if anybody's got any stories about going into a situation thinking it was ghosts and then finding out it was aliens, let me know in the comments below. All right.
Yeah. Well, like shadow people, a lot of people are starting to think shadow people are interdimensional.
Yeah. Well, there's and again, just like with aliens, or I would say almost anything paranormal, anything considered paranormal, cryptids, UFOs, aliens, ghosts, almost all of them have a dimensional theory to them. Somebody has said about, hey, this is interdimensional, or travel through portals, or there's so many theories about each one. But yeah, I mean, that's, that could be, dark shadows.
If you keep up with the quantum physics, those people that's involved with that, more and more are talking about that there is portals.
Right. Well, I definitely believe that there's portals for sure, because I myself, they're even in the Bible. There's portals mentioned directly in the Bible and other ancient ancient scripts. Like in the Book of Enoch, things like that. There is portals. Like I said, it's in the Bible itself tells you that there's portals. So I definitely believe that there's portals out there.
Yep.
So I do believe in that, and just to kind of play with your theory a little bit when you talk about dark shadows, I would even go as far as say, it's possible because, and I'm sure you've experienced this, but it seems to be when I've come across dark shadows, they seem to sort of pace back and forth, and they love to like peek around corners, almost like a very curious nature. I'm not talking about the other ones that kind of hover over the bed and choke people and stuff, or do like a suffocation. But the dark shadows that seem to pace and peek around corners. I know that other investigators have seen this, and it's kind of a common thing. So that would make sense if they are traveling or from another dimension, that they might be just more curious and seem to have that sort of pacing and keep moving and looking around corners and things like that.
The Earth might be on a guidebook. If you want to see something weird, go to this planet. Too bad I can't move the picture around here. There's about a 2-foot-long possum eating the cat food behind me.
Oh, goodness.
They have raccoons coming every night.
Well, our dog took out 2 possums in the last couple of weeks. I hate to admit that, but we have a fenced-in backyard, and apparently these possums decided to come into the backyard, and our husky said, "No, I ain't having none of that," and dispatched of them quickly.
Well, my cats and my dogs and the raccoons get along fairly well. The cats learn don't mess with the raccoons, and the raccoons learn don't mess with the dogs. So they have a schedule. They wait till the dogs are in the house before they come in and eat the cat food.
Yeah, that's cool though. I like how you always have these different little animals and stuff hanging around though. I like it. It's pretty cool. I know sometimes people are like, oh, you should, squirrels are a nuisance, and we used to have them come up to our window, and my wife would leave little food out on this. We used to have this one house we used to live at had a railing that would come right up to the window. So she would leave little food, and the squirrels would just sit right there in the window, 1 foot away from her face, and eat, because they couldn't see in the house because of the way the reflections and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But
well, I do it as a business proposition with the raccoons. I have a 1-acre pond right behind my house here, and in the springtime, I almost broke my ankle twice stepping in crawdad holes. Well, that's a primary food source for raccoons. So what I do is I let them stick around here. They eat the crawdad, so there's no crawdad holes anymore. And all I do is just give them marshmallows and sugar wafers. It's a business deal.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool. I mean, that's cool when you have those awesome little, symbiotic relationships with those animals. I like it. I think it's cool. Some people are like, just kill them all. They're nuisances. But
well, I watch out. I watch out for rabies a lot because raccoons are prone to get that.
Yeah.
So I'm careful about that. But when they're little, they're cute. But last year I had 2 that could climb up my leg and get in my lap so I could feed them. But I always keep in mind they are wild animals and they will turn on you if they get scared.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you keep on them, I have to change your name to Dr. Doolittle.
No, I don't speak raccoon. But anyway, back to aliens.
I know, we're turning into now all of a sudden we're like a National Geographic show here. Domestic animals.
But yeah, Linda Moulton Howe, she had one of her comments in when I was talking to her, she thought they were here to sit there and figure out how we tick in case we do become a problem. What's the quickest way to wipe them out? Like if we were a virus or something. And they got to worry about that because if we go to space, at some point, out there, the different ideologies and beliefs in our own world here, we're most likely going to try to nuke each other up there, which would cause a lot of problems. I think we're being contained, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask you too another thing, and I know this might be a little on the personal side, but do you think what do you think about religion and aliens? If they come here, or does that affect anything that we believe about God or anything like that? I guess that would come down to personal preferences, but where do you kind of weigh in on that?
It depends on what you was taught.
Right.
If you're let's say a Pentecostal or something like that, you might think anything that isn't human and go to their church. Well, if it's not go to their church specifically, but if it's not human, it's a demon. It's got to be dealt with, which would cause a problem if they're trying to, one walks up and says, "We come in peace," they get shot.
Right.
some of the more forward-thinking religions, they'd probably welcome them and say, teach us your knowledge. But yeah, it just depends on your religious belief, how you're going to deal with them.
Yeah.
I'm kind of, I'm an ordained metaphysical minister, and I just deal with the soul. And you got to think, does aliens have souls? Or are they soulless? And if they die, do they go to a different heaven than we go to?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of spiritual questions you could ask yourself about that, because, we have a Bible in place here, or we have certain religions in place for Earth, but who's to say that it could be the same God, but with another planet, he could have life and a whole other system going on there and have their own religion. Doesn't necessarily have to follow, they may have a different covenant with God. We could share the same God. It doesn't mean it had to be in our Bible or anything. So I do think that there could be a larger picture if there is a solar system like that.
That's one thing I thought about once before. I'm a believer in reincarnation, but let's say you're coming back to this earth to learn certain lessons in life, to evolve as a soul, and all of a sudden you die in some natural calamity or something that just wipes out your society altogether or your planet. You haven't learned all your lessons yet. Where does that soul go to continue his learning?
Yeah.
Does he get a brochure of different planets? Does he get to go to a planet where you got 8 legs instead of 2, where you can fly, versus where you can't fly and you're a fish? So those souls, some souls might be on this earth that's never been here before, that was from another planet.
I want to take a moment real quick, Bob. We had Pneumaticos Paranormal came in, and I apologize for not getting, not bringing you up sooner. But we were just got on a conversation. But he said that reading the newest thoughts from the science guys, some are saying that there are more and more evidence of UFO being humans from the future. Thoughts?
Could be. Could very well be. I just wrote an article, it's not published yet, about, we keep on hearing about certain people, inventors and that were born before their time, because they're creating stuff that's like 100 years later before somebody understands what they were doing. And could those be aliens that come from our future and coming back in time to adjust timelines? I mean, if our timeline changed tonight, we wouldn't know it because we're in the new timeline.
Right. Yeah, we would consistently be, skewering into whatever, or we just stay in our own timeline, and then it skews off other, alternate timelines that we never know about, and we just are always in that one timeline anyways. But if they are adjusting our timeline, our main timeline, so to speak, that could also explain Mandela effects and things like that people talk about. But I think that Pneumaticos Paranormal does bring up that point of future and alteration. And, in my opinion, I think if we discovered time travel, yes, I'm pretty sure there's going to be people stupid enough, even though we're going to be smart enough to invent that someday, I'm sure. But we're still, as humans, going to be stupid enough to go back and try to adjust timelines. I don't know. I think that's pretty dangerous myself.
Apparently it doesn't work if we're where we're at right now. Well, we won't know it, but I wouldn't think they'd be able to do it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I just, thinking about it in theory, I guess if you try to put yourself in the future and say, okay, if we could go back, why would we go back and look like a UFO and just hang out and zip around and sort of act like the way the behaviors? I don't think it would match up to maybe what we would be as in the future and why we would come back. I don't think we would just come back and observe and do science experiments, because we already know about ourselves. If we
Well, it
do
could be
come
like,
back, I think it's going to be for the purpose of altering a timeline and doing a direct action, not just hanging out.
or it could be like a future version of a Disney cruise. You know, how would you like to go back to the 1800s and see how people really lived? Or the
Well, that's
1900s?
true. That's true. Like, tourism, right? Future tourism. That could be true. I can see that. Because we would capitalize that, wouldn't we?
You had a chance to go back and see certain events in time, and you could afford to do it, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, but why come to this time? There's so many other.
Well, yeah,
There's so many other good stuff.
I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that's happened in the last 80, 90 years. I've been around when we still had outhouses.
Right.
Back when that thing I was telling you about earlier, where I was 5 years old, I had to get a drink out of the sink, but I had to put water in the well to pump it. We had one of those little handheld pumps that you had to pump the water to come out. So I've been around a while.
I got to use that stuff when I was growing up, believe it or not. But yeah, I mean,
from that to space shuttles and that, this is an exciting time if you think about it.
Yeah.
Maybe not to them because they're bored to tears because everything's been solved. They're not going to die early. They're not going to get cancer. So let's go back and see what it was like roughing it in the 1900s.
Hey, that's true. I can concede that your point, because I think for sure, yes, you're right. We would capitalize that. We'd be like, hey, we can make money at time travel.
Absolutely.
I guess when you think about it, normally you think of it as like some top secret government thing. But I guess if once they declassify it, they'd be like, hey, we've got time travel, and guess what? For only $2 million, you can go visit the past.
Well, there's cases out there supposedly in Arkansas years and years ago. Somebody come wandering out of the forest. Supposedly he was a Civil War soldier, and he was babbling on about what was going on around him. I don't know what I think they put him in a state asylum, but the guy, the clothes he wore and everything was period clothes. So did he go into one of those portals and all of a sudden pop out somewhere else?
Yeah, that would be scary. I mean,
some of the reports on aliens where somebody gets abducted as a small child, and all of a sudden they're in their 40s or 50s, they get abducted again. They're meeting the same alien that they've known all their lives. I think Whitley Schreiber mentioned that the one that kept on abducting him never aged. So was he just popping in and out of time to look at whatever experiment he was running?
Yeah.
There's just so much out there to the theories out there. You can almost get a headache thinking about all of them.
Maybe that's why Tom Cruise doesn't age. Maybe he's an alien.
Well, that would surprise me. Did you ever watch Men in Black?
Yeah. When
they talked about Elvis, he didn't die, he just went home.
Right. I know when they used to have all the pictures of the different, like, alien, the high profile, the celebrity aliens,
Yep.
Things like that. I know that's and again, that those type of stories are definitely interesting because maybe we are interacting with the past or the future or something. Again, those type of things are interesting. That like when people talk about the Mandela effect and how certain things were remembered certain ways, but then now you look back, it's like, no, they're not that way. It's always been this way. It's like, what the heck? So it makes you wonder if there was adjustments in the time period. Now, I know, people always ask that question sometimes, like, hey, man, if you could go back in your past and change something, would you, And I always say no, because there's many times in my life where if I, would have changed one thing, it could have altered my whole life. And then I wouldn't have had my wife, I wouldn't have had my kids, you know what I mean? So absolutely. I wouldn't change anything. Now, if I went back, because they're like, oh, what if you could talk to your younger self? What would you tell? I would avoid it.
Yeah.
I would avoid it. Because now maybe you could, because my luck is I would run into my younger self, and I would say like, "Hey, man, don't eat too much. You're gonna get fat when someday." But like my luck is my conversation would delay me just enough time to where I'm gonna end up getting hit by a bus or something. Where normally I wouldn't have. So that'd be my luck.
If you look at it metaphysically, the lifelines we've lived so far, in certain instances that are life-changing for us, supposedly, in theory, that the soul has a contract with the Creator to do certain things at certain times is learning experiences. So you don't want to go messing up the test by cheating.
Right.
Well, so if something happens
exactly
for you, it's for a reason.
Well, in theory, if you did go back, as long as, like, if you did talk to somebody, as long as that night they went to bed and woke up the next day and continued on as if they normally would have, and you didn't give them any critical information, chances are you wouldn't affect the future. But obviously, there is a lot of little things that could happen, a lot of butterfly effects that you could trigger. Terry Lynn says, Tom Cruise believes in Scientology, which they believe in alien gods. Seems plausible he's an alien.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, that John Travolta, who also belongs to the same religion, he played an alien in Battlefield Earth.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's I don't want to talk about Scientology on here because that's definitely something I could.
If you worry about an anal probe, that'd be the way to do it.
Right.
Now we're on somebody's list for sure.
Right now, I know now satellites are linking up. Oh man. All right, way to go, Terry Lynn. Way to get us in trouble. But yeah, and again, I'm pretty sure this whole topic, if we get something right on this show, I'm pretty sure satellites are going to be linking up anyways, or they're going to be cutting my show anyways. Like, oh, that's too close. That's too close, man.
But the main point of this show and shows like it is the things that we don't understand now that might be a different reality. It's going to be people like us that find it. Rather than the status quo where scientists say, you can't believe that. It just never happened. You're delusional, or they just hide the evidence. We're not going to find out what the true reality is by them people. It's going to be by people like us.
Yeah.
They constantly ask questions. They may sound like stupid questions now, but they might be totally relevant.
Oh yeah, and and I think that they're not too worried about people like us finding out or speculating about those things, because I think that in their mind they're like, nobody's going to believe them. Like,
Absolutely.
Who's going to believe Josh Morris just because he was right about this? Doesn't mean that anybody else is going to believe him. Now, if you get a big enough platform, then they might start having to deal with you.
Yeah. And what was that, the Prime Minister of Canada, or was the Minister of Defense, that came out and said, there's like 8 species of aliens that's coming to the planet and all that? They would have popped ago.
Oh, yeah.
They assumed nobody believed him.
Yeah, it's funny when you have certain people that come out, and like high profile people that will blurt something out. Remember when Buzz Aldrin came back from Antarctica and he was like freaked out? Remember that? And then all of a sudden, like, he was like, that was just like Arctic sickness, and don't worry about that tweet I did and all that. I retracted it, and
Yeah. Or that female astronaut from France had freaked out when she got to the space station.
Yeah.
Do you recall that one?
No. What was it? What was that one?
She was a French astronaut that was going to the International Space Station, and as they were docking, she saw something out in space close to the space station, and she started freaking out.
Oh. See, I didn't hear about that one.
So I must read more about that kind of stuff than you do.
Pretty much. Probably. I'm telling you, I'm bad about a lot of news articles. I mean, like, look, I know a lot about ghosts because that's what I've studied, but I'm not always good about keeping up with, like, all the current stories and things that are related to certain things and like stuff like that. Like I'm bad about that. I really am. It's like I try to catch up. Sometimes my wife, she'll text me a bunch of articles to read and stuff. She's like, "Hey, check this out. This is like a UFO thing or something or ghost thing or something." I try to. My wife's better about keeping me a little more in the loop than I am. That's for sure.
Well, see, there's a difference between you and me. I'm retired. I got all the time in the world to do this stuff. You have to actually work for a living.
I know, that sucks. I have not been able to find that line of free money. I just haven't.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to find that.
In fact, that's what I do now. I'll see a new piece of equipment. I'll go out and get it in a second.
Yeah.
Because I can.
Yeah. And so that also wants me to let all you guys know out there, if you have that free line of money, please put it in the comments below. Or actually, you know what? Don't put it in the comments below. Actually, PM me, all right, or DM me, right? Direct message me on Facebook and let me know about it. Okay, folks?
Yeah, go fund me, Josh.
Yeah, go fund me, Josh. Free money line, free hashtag free money. Free money line.
There
you go.
Well, look, people's getting new knowledge from this show. They're finding out things they might have never known before, and it's all for free. So the least they could do is open up a GoFundMe tip jar for the Josh Morris Everything Paranormal show.
Aw, that's sweet of you. Yeah. Well, we do this because we care about people, right?
Well, for that, we're trying to learn the truth.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I've always said is seek the truth. And, one of my platforms and one of the things that I really enjoyed about, the conversations that you and I have had was that you do seem to be the type of investigator that not only are you thorough, which is very important to me. I think it's very commendable that you document, that you're thorough, and that you care about people, that you actually are trying to help people understand what's going on, even if it's answers they may not want to hear. You're telling them, hey, this is what's going on. I'm going to document everything for you, and I really do think that that's awesome.
Well, this just before the show, before I contacted you tonight, I'm working on an article right now that how I directed my investigations from a certain point. With this poor little lady, their daughter was going to send her to a nursing home because they thought she had dementia. She had entities in her house. And we proved to her that there was voices out there that she was hearing were real. We had an Indian shaman come in because it was apparently it was an entity. It was in the Trail of Tears.
Oh, wow.
It was in the house. And it saved her from getting forced to go to a nursing home.
Was it Cherokee maybe?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But we actually got it. In fact, it's on one of our video clips on my website. Because we asked this person, were you on the Trail of Tears? And we got a definite answer that says, yes, I was.
Wow.
Plus, we heard beating on one of the EVPs.
Yeah, my wife, she had some... And again, I don't want to get into her personal stories, but she's definitely had some very close-knit paranormal stuff with Indians.
I don't think you want to get messed up with a negative Indian spirit. I mean, demons might be bad, but you don't want to tick off an Indian.
I personally believe that because the Indians were so in tune with Earth, I really feel like their spirits truly tend to be stronger than like our average spirit, like mine or something.
They were closer to the spirit world than we ever were.
Right. And they just had such a connection, and that was just the core of that Native American lifestyle, that it just truly strengthened their spirits just 100-fold compared to us. So that's why I really believe that, yeah, when you do come across spirits of Indians, it's usually very, very predominant.
Yep. You're going to have to cut out the last 15 minutes of your hour's show because you're 15 minutes over.
Oh, well, we don't go by strict rules around here.
I found that out already.
Plus, we got off to a little bit of a late start, anyways, because we had a little bit of technical difficulty. Because for most of you that don't realize, we actually started broadcasting at 11:30, but we wasn't broadcasting, so we had to actually start over. So we lost a secret, hidden chunk of show that exists only between me and Bob.
That was because the government was trying to stop us.
Always. They're always trying to shut us down. Jeez. I wonder why. But
yeah.
So Bob, let me just ask you, I'm going to ask you a couple things here as we start to kind of wrap up the show.
Sure.
But and Terry Lynn said too that the Indian Brave that she had watching over her was truly an experience. Again, I'm going to have to get her one day. I'm going to have to convince her to get on here on the show, even if it's just audio, because she doesn't like being on camera. But I'm going to have to get her on here and get her to share some of her paranormal experiences and things, and especially from her childhood. So she's got some really great stories from that. So I definitely would love to hear those.
You think she don't like getting on camera? Look at me. I look like the Crypt Keeper again.
Oh, no. Not today. You look good today.
However, I did get a haircut, so I didn't look like an old Giorgio Tuchel.
No, you look good today, Bob. Don't worry about it. I'm telling you that now. 100% better than last time. 100%.
So you're saying I looked pretty bad last time, huh?
No, you look good last time. You look 100% better now. See?
There you go.
Exactly. So I don't look at it the other way, because then the other way makes me look like an asshole.
That's my job.
Oh, see, I love having you on here.
What are you going to ask me?
All right, so a couple things. One is I like to always ask this of everybody. And again, I know I've already had you on here before. I think I've asked you this, but I'm going to ask you it again. Right. If you could go back in time, see, it does go back to what we were talking about a little bit, though. If you could go back in time as a ghost, in other words, you're not going to interact with anything. It's more observational. If you could go back in time for just one day, what would it be, and and why?
What did I tell you last time? You don't remember either, do you?
I'm trying to remember, but
I would get to be with Tesla.
God, everybody's saying Tesla. You're like the third person to say Tesla. Everybody wants to go see Tesla. In fact, Absolutely. On the last week, Mike Simon said he would go back and witness a day with Tesla.
Absolutely. I don't want to be around the static electricity he was doing, but just sitting there chit-chatting with him about all the possibilities he had, because he was a genius.
Right. And I agree, though. I think he is definitely a good choice. Again, my choice still has to be a day of witnessing the pyramids being built, because I think that there's a lot of questions that could be answered. I just think that's a very pivotal moment in our history that can answer some questions. But I also believe Tesla was such a pivotal part of our history as well, that I think that even some of his mysteries could unlock even more great things in our society. Because we're still trying to catch up to his technology.
Yep.
Especially his wireless stuff.
That might be some stuff that they're doing in Area 51.
It's possible.
Because remember, all of his documents and his safe full of information when he died was confiscated by the government.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a whole other conspiracy show there too.
Absolutely.
But
you want to talk about conspiracies? I'm a Freemason. I've come out of the closet.
Oh, well, it depends on how high up you are. See, if you're like really high up there, then maybe you can tell us some cool things.
They don't call us lower level Freemasons crap.
Okay, well there you go. That's what I mean. In all honesty, like I've known some Freemasons and stuff, and it does seem to be like if there was anything conspiratorial with them, that it would be on those very upper levels. Like I don't think that the common lodges and places like that that operate on a community level probably have, just no idea at all. And they operate and they do a lot of good things for people and charities and things like that. If there is anything, I would say it would have to be at the very upper top, whole separate thing, I'm sure.
Well, power corrupts, so any upper level of any organization is corrupt.
Yeah. I mean, power, right?
Now, one of the things I learned from them, though, was constantly strive to learn new things.
Yes. And that's a good lesson. And in
Absolutely.
fact, I would say one thing I learned that's very, very right on with that is, and I know this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but just a quick little thing, is that when I was reading, like, I think so they did an article like with some of the top 10 most successful people, and they asked them all questions about their success. And I can't remember who said it. It wasn't like a well-known person. It was just like a successful guy that not a lot of people knew, as far as by name. He wasn't like a household name like Michael Jordan or something. It wasn't nothing like that. But this guy said that every time his company would send him to these like these training seminars and all these different meetings they had, that he said that he always would say, I'm going to learn at least one thing, at least minimally. I'm going to learn one thing in this. I'm going to take away something, at least one thing. Because, a lot of times you go to these and it's like the same thing, like, they're just teaching us the same crap, whatever. But he would always try to find one new thing to learn, whether it was maybe the way somebody said something or an inflection. Right, just something. He would always try to take away. And that's always kind of stuck with me. So anytime I do things, I always try to at least take away something from that.
Absolutely. That's my major goal, too. Every day I try to learn something new I didn't know before.
Now, Terry Lynn,
sometimes I get out of my comfort zone, but I do find stuff that I've never known before.
Now, Terry Lynn said she wanted to hear about Bobby Mackey's place.
We went there in the middle of, I think it was November. Well, it was November 19th. It was my birthday, and we went there. The next day, I come out. I'm deathly ill. I barely made it home. In the next 2 weeks, I lost 30 pounds because I couldn't hold anything down. Got rushed to the hospital, emergency surgery. My stomach and part of my intestines were shoved up in my lungs, which wasn't a problem because I just had a physical like 2 weeks before I went. And, they talk about there's a demon in the place.
Jeez.
So, did I have was it coincidental that all of a sudden this massive hernia just happened? Or was I attacked?
Right. Well, I would definitely say, yeah, it sounds like you were attacked, because, especially if you were in good health right before that.
Yep. So the people I went with said they'd like to go back. And I said, just tell me how it turns out, because I ain't going.
Jeez. Well, all right. So the last thing I wanted to give you an opportunity before we wrap up the show was just if you could let everybody know what are some of the things that you're working on, or maybe your team. What's some of the things you got going on?
Well, let's see here. We got probably the third week in February. I'm having a class again. We have it at this antique mall. Because one of our team members is a manager of the antique mall, and the owner is all for it because we've went in there before.
What city? Where's this going to be?
In Covington. But it's called Upscale Resale. And what I do is just teach basically, the legal ramifications, physical protection, spiritual protection, how to use equipment. And then when we get done with that, we actually have people go out in a little mini paranormal investigation in the mall. And what's going to be interesting is we just had a well-known haunted building in our community where it was sold, all the furniture and fixtures and stuff like that from the place. The owner of the antique mall bought it, and it's all stored there in the mall right now. So needless to say, we're going to check for attachments and that, so it ought to be interesting.
Yeah.
I've got a community center that we got to go back to. They had a a fundraiser for the fire department. They had all these Halloween haunted mansion type things.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
the place is actually haunted, and apparently the entity that is there, which I think is a little girl, she sat there and started messing with the actors. We had an actor that looked like that clown in It, had the little red balloons.
Right.
As soon as it was brought up that wouldn't it be neat if there was really a ghost in here, the balloons started popping one at a time, and no one was near them.
Nice.
So yeah, the mayor kind of wants us to go back there and further investigate what's going on. So we're going to ask some of the people from the class come with us to actually do a full-scale investigation there. Then I got a few more places I'm supposed to go, but we haven't firmed it up yet. So I stay busy.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Well, I'm really glad to hear that. And as usual, Bob, I always enjoy when you come on the show. Hopefully, we'll be able to get you back on again soon. I love having you on. You always bring a lot of interesting stories, and you have so much experience from your past. It really and it just, I think a lot of people like hearing, the way you approach things, sort of your demeanor. So I think that's awesome. But yeah, I mean, we're definitely gonna have to get together sometime.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. And if anybody wants to see some of our EVPs we've captured, the good ones where you can actually hear them, we have a website, or I put together a couple of years ago. It's called spectraltech.org.
Right. And I'm going to try to get that link for you guys down below. So if you're watching this later, I'll try to add that in there for you guys later.
We got an evidence page with a lot of EVPs. I've got a section over there where Paranormal Underground lets me post all the articles that they've published for me. So you can go out the evidence page and see some of the things we've done on investigations, and you might enjoy it.
Awesome.
Of course, you might find I'm a terrible writer and bored to tears. So
no,
it's a toss.
No, you guys. Hey, like I said in the beginning of the show, definitely check out Paranormal Underground magazine. Bob, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Folks, stay tuned. Next week, we're going to be doing another show, and hopefully we'll have another good guest for you lined up. Again, you can catch me here every week usually, and also my Facebook. I have a group on there, the Everything Paranormal Show. If you're not part of that group, guys, go check out that group. And also available now, this is going to be on Spotify. You'll be able to find this on Spotify and a few other key podcast sites. I believe iTunes, but I have not been able to find myself on iTunes. It's supposed to be there. But if not, guys, keep an eye out for it. But definitely on Spotify, it's going to be there. So hope to see you guys soon. And remember, seek the truth.
You forgot to mention that there's a book out there by some guy named Josh Morris. It's worth reading.
Yes, if you haven't seen my book, you should go check out my book, My Paranormal, A Guide to Spirit Realms. Thanks, Bob.
Well, and he didn't even tell me to mention that before the interview.
I know. I try not to. It's hard for me to say those things about myself, but I do it. I do need to say it. I do hope you guys enjoy the book and everything. But all right, so, yeah. Well, it's been fun. And like I said, we'll see you guys next week. Seek the truth.